We welcome to PoliticKIng Richard Painter, professor of law at the University of Minnesota, former chief White House ethics lawyer during the George W. Bush administration, and he has tweeted that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has violated the Hatch Act. What is the act and how has he violated it?
The Hatch Act specifically prohibits United States government employees from using their official position to endorse or to oppose a political candidate. It also prohibits the use of United States government funds to support a political party or political candidate. Secretary Pompeo, at taxpayer expense, flew on a diplomatic mission over to the Middle East, including the city of Jerusalem. He had a speech written that he was going to give at the Republican National Convention. And he taped that speech in Jerusalem with the old city of Jerusalem and the Western Wall as a backdrop for a political speech while he was on a diplomatic mission paid for by the taxpayers. That's a clear violation of the Hatch Act. No other Secretary of State has ever involved himself or herself in electoral politics and partisan politics in any capacity. And yet he does this.
What is the penalty for violating it?
The presumptive penalty for violating the Hatch Act is being fired from the United States government. The investigations are carried out by the Office of Special Counsel, and then a recommendation is made to the superior of the person who's violating the Hatch Act. Unfortunately, the superior here is Donald Trump, who doesn't care. He has previously been told, President Trump, that people working for him violate the Hatch Act, including Kellyanne Conway, who was investigated for violating the Hatch Act by attacking Joe Biden on the White House lawn. Office of Special Counsel said to President Trump that Kellyanne Conway should be fired, and nothing happened. So that's the problem here, enforcing the Hatch Act.
When the secretary says he appeared as a personal capacity, that doesn't fly with you?
That doesn't fly at all. He was on a diplomatic mission outside the United States, paid for by the taxpayer. He is appearing in that video with the Western Wall in the background, the old city of Jerusalem. He mentions being in the old city of Jerusalem. He mentions that Donald Trump transferred the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He mentions the recent deal with the United Arab Emirates. He talks about the very same type of diplomatic mission that he is on at taxpayer expense when he's doing that video. There's no way that's at a personal capacity.
What do you expect will happen?
Well, I am going to later on today file a complaint with the Office of Special Counsel against Secretary Pompeo with Professor Claire Finkelstein at the University of Pennsylvania. She's going to join me in this complaint. We plan to file that within a few hours. There are other complaints that have been filed as well. The Democrats in the House Oversight Committee, I believe in the House of Representatives, are going to conduct an investigation themselves. And this is a very, very serious situation. We have never had a Secretary of State get involved in partisan politics in any capacity, much less while on a diplomatic mission overseas.
Also, the former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, recently an advisor to President Trump and also a contributor to his campaign, she spoke at the Republican convention and accused Joe Biden and his family of corruption. Your organization, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, filed complaints against her for what?
Well, I recall that she was, at one point when she was the Attorney General down there in Florida, was involved in a number of matters affecting Donald Trump and not investigating certain alleged illegal conduct and making campaign contributions and some back and forth there. I'd have to go back over those complaints. A number of them may have been filed before I came on the board of directors of Crew, but there were some serious concerns about what she had done in an official capacity, whether she was using her position in order to help Donald Trump. And that is not something that should be done by federal or state attorneys general.
All right, the Trump organization faces serious new charges regarding the New York Attorney General and the charges against Eric Trump, the president's son. The investigation as to whether the Trump organization misled banks in order to secure loans by inflating assets. It's a civil investigation. Could it become criminal?
Yes, it could. There is currently a criminal investigation against involving the Trump Organization in the Southern District of New York, in the federal system, but also the state. There's a state grand jury proceeding. Cyrus Vance, the prosecutor in Manhattan, went all the way to the Supreme Court and won his case seeking Trump Organization financial records because Cyrus Vance is investigating financial crimes by the Trump Organization that are alleged to have occurred. Just last week, Donald Trump lost again in the federal district court his attempt to block those subpoenas. That's going to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. But the U.S. Supreme Court already weighed in a case I put an amicus brief in on last March, Trump versus Vance. And the Supreme Court made it very clear those documents are going to be turned over to the grand jury in New York. So, yes, there is an ongoing criminal investigation at the state level, and there may very well be another one at the federal level in the Southern District of New York.
At least 21 states are suing the U.S. Postal Service and the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, accusing them of intentionally effort to thwart voters from mailing their ballots this fall. These lawsuits carry any weight?
Yes, they do. We've got a very difficult situation right now. We are going to rely on vote by mail. Many Americans do not want to vote in person with COVID-19. They want to vote by mail, and that's our right. And many states have put in place an effective vote by mail system, although the Trump operatives have been suing to try to block vote by mail in a number of states. The problem is vote by mail doesn't work if the postal system doesn't deliver. We just happen to have a U.S. postal system that is run by a Trump campaign contributor. Well, that's suspicious in and of itself. And now we start to see a lot of dysfunction at the post office, questions about whether they can deliver the mail and when, even removing mailboxes from a number of sites. This is a very, very difficult situation, and there needs to be a very close eye kept to the post office. It's critically important for a democracy that we have vote by mail in November.
I don't understand. The president hasn't answered. What is the argument against mail-in voting?
The argument against mail-in voting is that Donald Trump might lose. That's what it boils down to. He's afraid he's going to lose.
What does he base it on?
He says it's going to be a massive amount of fraud. He says there'll be fraud and people will mail in 2 ballots or 3 ballots. Every state that has vote by mail has precautions against fraud. There's 1 ballot per voter. And you lose your ballot, they have a way of canceling that one out, so you couldn't vote twice if you get another one. Every state has adequate precautions. There is not going to be fraud with vote by mail. The bottom line is Donald Trump doesn't want people to vote. The fewer people who vote, the better his chances are.
Boy, that's a shame. Do you expect this to go anywhere legally?
Well, we're going to see what happens with the Postal Service, but I believe there are going to be legal actions brought against the Postal Service if they are not effective in delivering the mail, keeping the post offices open, keeping the mailboxes where they are, not picking up the mailboxes, putting them on the back of a truck and hauling them away before Election Day. Everybody ought to be able to rely on that mailbox they know is on such and such street corner being there and the mail being delivered. And so they got to stop horsing around and do their job, which is to deliver the mail, and that includes those mail-in ballots.
Richard, as always, thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. Thank you for having me.